The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was a place where the light of distant stars seemed to gather. Shimmering walls reflected thousands of colors, and the air vibrated with the voices of many different species, giants from gas worlds, small winged creatures from high-gravity planets, and ancient beings of pure light all sat in curved rows, watching the center floor where decisions about the galaxy's future were made. That day, the name of one small blue planet was spoken more than any other: Earth. The Council had studied humanity for many years. Reports had been gathered from silent drones, from quiet observers, and from ambassadors who had dared to walk among the people of Earth. The information was clear, or so it seemed. Humans were violent, divided, and fragile. The elder speaker, a tall figure with skin like flowing silver, raised his hand and spoke with calm authority. "Let the record show," he began, his voice echoing in the chamber, "that the species called Homo sapiens has proven unstable. Their wars are countless. Their nations are fractured. Their history is written in fire and blood. If allowed into our council, they may spread conflict beyond their homeworld." Many nodded in agreement. A scaled diplomat from the world of Core hissed loudly, "They fight among themselves more than any race I have studied. Even their art and stories are filled with conflict. How can such a people ever live in harmony among the stars?" A soft wave of agreement moved through the chamber, but not all voices were in perfect unity. From a lower seat, Ambassador Solari of the Areni lifted her wings. Her species was known for patience and wisdom. She did not speak quickly, but when she did, many listened. "I agree that humans fight often," she said. "But have you also seen how they rebuild? After disaster, they rise. After pain, they create again. Perhaps we mistake scars for weakness when they may in fact be signs of strength." The chamber grew quiet for a moment. The idea was uncomfortable. For thousands of years, the Council had believed that peace alone was the path to greatness. A species that grew strong through struggle seemed almost dangerous. The elder speaker shook his head. "Ambassador Solari, your compassion is noted. Yet history cannot be denied. Look at their endless conflicts. Even in the last century, they nearly destroyed themselves. They are broken. They cannot be trusted." The vote that followed was nearly final before it even began. The majority agreed. Humanity would not be allowed into the Council. They would remain on the edges of the galaxy, monitored but never trusted, watched but never welcomed. On Earth, of course, no human knew of the debate taking place above the stars. People were busy with their lives, working, learning, dreaming, and struggling as always. Cities glowed with light, fields stretched wide with crops, ships crossed oceans. Technology continued to advance, but the old challenges of survival and conflict never disappeared completely. To the Council, this only confirmed their judgment. "They are too young," said one delegate. "Too wild," said another. "Too broken," concluded the elder speaker once again. Yet, hidden within those same reports were small details many chose to ignore. A family rebuilding their home after a hurricane, working side by side even when hope seemed lost. A group of nations that had once been enemies joining together to fight disease. Young people protesting for peace, refusing to accept endless conflict. These signs of resilience were mentioned but rarely valued. To most of the Council, they were sparks in the dark, too small to light a galaxy. In one corner of the chamber, however, two younger counselors whispered together. "Do you believe the humans will stay broken?" one asked. The other, a being with crystal skin that shone like morning sun, tilted their head. "No, I think they are like fractured glass. They may seem fragile, but under pressure they can cut through steel." Neither dared to say it too loudly. The Council did not like challenges to its judgment. The truth was that humanity itself did not know what it was becoming. On Earth, people often thought of themselves as ordinary, trapped in everyday struggles. They dreamed of the stars but could not yet reach them freely. Rockets carried explorers into orbit. Machines roved across distant planets. But humans themselves remained bound close to home. If they could have heard the words spoken in the Council chamber, perhaps they would have felt anger. Or perhaps they would have laughed. For while the Council saw them as broken, humans knew another truth. They had always been survivors. It was in their nature to fall, then rise. To break, then heal stronger. To lose, then fight again with greater will. Far above Earth, the Council chamber closed its session. The elder speaker gave the final words. "The humans are unstable. They must remain apart. Watch them if you must, but keep them outside our unity. Let them fade, as all broken things do. The great doors sealed with a heavy sound. The decision was made, but the story of humanity was far from over. For history has shown again and again, when the world believes humans are broken, it is then that they prove their true strength. And the galaxy, though it did not yet know it, was about to learn that lesson in ways it would never forget. The Council believed their judgment final. They thought Earth would remain silent, too far and too weak to disturb the galaxy. Yet fate rarely follows the plans of the powerful. Far beyond the polished walls of the Council chamber, trouble was growing in the dark spaces between stars. There, where law had no reach, pirate clans and raider fleets hunted freely. They cared nothing for the Council's rules, only for plunder and power. And in time, their hungry eyes turned toward the small human colonies that had begun to grow beyond Earth. At first, these colonies were small, clusters of habitats on barren moons, stations floating in orbit around lonely planets, and mining outposts deep within asteroid belts. To raiders, they seemed like easy prey. One such colony called Haven Reach became their target. It was a mining settlement on a rocky world, where a few thousand humans lived under a fragile dome of glass and steel. The settlers were scientists, engineers, and families searching for a new beginning. They had weapons, yes, but only a handful, meant for defense against wild beasts, not starships filled with pirates. The attack came without warning. Dark ships cut through the night sky like blades, their engines burning with cruel red light. Warning sirens screamed across Haven Reach as shadows fell over the colony dome. Settlers ran for shelter. Parents gathered their children. The ground shook as blasts struck the outer walls. From the Council's distant satellites, silent observers recorded everything. Council members expected the humans to panic, to surrender quickly. A broken species, after all, would not resist for long. But they were wrong. The governor of Haven Reach, an older woman named Elena Merrick, stood at the command center when the alarms rang. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded in her chest. "They think we are weak," she said to her frightened officers. "Then let us show them how wrong they are. Seal the dome, lock the gates, and call every hand, scientists, miners, even the children if they can carry supplies. We will not surrender." Her words spread through the colony faster than fear. Ordinary workers who had never held weapons began building barricades. Engineers rewired machines into traps. Miners carried heavy drills and plasma cutters ready to fight with tools if no guns were left. Every family joined in. Even the children carried water, food, and messages. No one chose to hide while others fought. When the raiders landed, they expected silence and fear. Instead, they met resistance. Streets that had seemed open were filled with hidden barriers. Lights flickered out, plunging the enemy into sudden darkness. Explosions burst from beneath their ships as human engineers triggered mines made from fuel tanks and spare parts. The settlers fought with everything they had. Where weapons failed, they used fire. Where fire failed, they used their own hands. The air shook with shouts, cries, and the thunder of battle. The raiders, who had thought the colony soft, found themselves trapped in a storm of human defiance. Far away, the Council watched the live reports with disbelief. "How are they still standing?" asked a delegate from a world where peace had been unbroken for 10,000 years. "They should have surrendered by now," muttered another, Ambassador Solari, who had once spoken in defense of humanity, allowed herself a small, quiet smile. "This," she whispered, "is what I tried to tell you. They are not broken. They are unyielding." The battle for Haven Reach raged for days. The humans fought with exhaustion, but their spirit did not break. Every time a wall fell, they built another. Every time a defender was lost, another took their place. Even when supplies grew thin and the dome cracked from bombardment, they refused to lower their flag. And then came the turning point. A group of young engineers, led by a boy no older than 19, discovered a weakness in the raiders' ships. With only scraps of equipment, they built a device to overload the enemy reactors. It was a desperate plan, but it worked. One by one, the raider vessels burned in the night sky, explosions painting the horizon with fire. When the last pirate fled into the dark, Haven Reach still stood, scarred, bloodied, but standing. News spread faster than the Council could control. Across Earth and every colony, the name of Haven Reach became a rallying cry. Songs were written. Stories were told. "We are not broken," the people shouted. "We rise together." The council tried to remain calm, but behind their silence was unease. Humanity had done what few thought possible. They had faced certain defeat and turned it into victory. Perhaps it was only luck, said one counselor. But Ambassador Solari shook her head. No, it was not luck. It was something far stronger. On Earth, Elena Merrick was hailed as a hero, though she refused such titles. I am no hero, she told her people. The heroes are the families who refused to kneel, the workers who fought with tools, the children who carried hope when all seemed lost. That is what it means to be human. Her words traveled far, even reaching the ears of the council itself. They were simple words, but they carried a weight the galaxy could not ignore. The spark had been lit. Humanity, once dismissed as broken, had shown a glimpse of its true nature. They were a people who could turn fear into fire, weakness into strength, and despair into unity. And the galaxy, though still doubtful, had begun to watch them with new eyes. For where one spark is lit, a flame will follow, and soon that flame would rise into a blaze that no council could control. The story of Haven Reach traveled across the stars like a spark carried by the wind. First it was whispered among traders who crossed human space. Then it spread through secret channels reaching colonies, outposts, and eventually Earth itself. Everywhere the same message was repeated. The humans fought back and they won. For a species once dismissed as weak, this victory became more than a tale. It became a symbol. Humanity, the so-called broken species, had shown that it could rise from disaster stronger than before. But the galaxy was not finished testing them. The raiders, humiliated by their defeat, refused to let the matter end. In hidden bases carved into asteroids and drifting stations cloaked in shadows, pirate leaders gathered. They spoke with rage and bitterness, their voices filled with fury. These humans dare to resist us, one growled, slamming a clawed hand on the table. They humiliated our fleets. If we do not crush them, others will believe they can defy us as well. Another leaned forward, eyes burning like embers. Then we will burn their colonies to ash. We will show them what happens when weak species rise against their betters. So the raiders gathered more ships. They forged alliances with other clans. They prepared to strike harder and faster than ever before. The council, meanwhile, watched from afar. Reports arrived daily of pirate movements near human borders. Many counselors grew uneasy. Perhaps we should intervene, suggested one, her crystalline body glowing faintly. The elder speaker shook his head. No, let the humans face this alone. It will prove what we already know, that they cannot endure. Ambassador Solari, sitting quietly in her seat, sighed but said nothing. She had learned the council listened only to its own fears. On Earth, the warnings reached the United Human Assembly. Leaders, scientists, and commanders gathered in a great hall overlooking the oceans of the homeworld. The images of Haven Reach's battle still played on every screen, a reminder of both danger and courage. Governor Elena Merrick was invited to speak. She stood before the assembly, her voice calm but unshakable. The raiders are coming again, she said. They believe we are still weak. They believe Haven Reach was a miracle that cannot be repeated. But I tell you this, our strength is not in one colony or one leader or one ship. Our strength is in all of us, together. If we rise as one people, no force in the galaxy can break us. Her words lit a fire in every heart. For the first time, Earth and its colonies began to act not as scattered settlements, but as a united people. Factories on Earth worked day and night to build new ships. Engineers on Mars designed stronger defenses for outposts. Colonists in distant systems forged weapons from mining tools. Scientists shared discoveries freely instead of keeping them locked away. Even ordinary families contributed. Farmers donated food. Children collected metals for recycling. Artists painted banners and songs that lifted spirits. Humanity, once divided by old rivalries, was learning to stand together. When the raiders struck again, they expected easy victories. Their fleets, larger than before, swept toward human space. The first target was a mining outpost on the edge of the Kuiper Belt, but instead of frightened miners, they found armed defenders waiting. The humans had studied every detail of the last attack, turning weakness into strategy. Hidden turrets opened fire. Mines exploded beneath raider ships. Civilian vessels, once helpless, now carried weapons of their own. The battle was fierce, but the humans did not retreat. They fought with stubborn courage, and when the smoke cleared, the raiders had lost another fleet. Across the galaxy, news spread again. The council chambers buzzed with uneasy voices. "This is impossible," muttered one counselor. No species has ever risen so quickly after such defeat. It is more than survival, said another. They are adapting faster than we imagined. The elder speaker frowned deeply but offered no answer. Ambassador Solari finally spoke, her wings catching the chamber's light. I warned you. You call them broken, but they are not. They are like fire. The harder you try to stamp it out, the brighter it burns. The raiders did not stop. They gathered larger forces, determined to crush humanity once and for all. But with every attack, humans grew stronger. Each wound became a lesson. Each loss became a reason to fight harder. At Haven Reach, new towers rose from the ruins, stronger than the ones destroyed. On Earth, fleets launched into space, carrying the banner of unity. Colonies once fearful now stood tall, declaring they would never kneel again. The galaxy began to notice. Species long under the shadow of raiders looked to humanity with hope. If humans could resist, perhaps they too could rise. One night on Earth, Elena Merrick stood alone at the edge of the ocean. The waves crashed softly against the shore, carrying with them the scent of salt and the memory of countless ages. She looked up at the stars, her face lit by their distant glow. She remembered the words once spoken in the council. The humans are broken. They must remain apart. Let them fade as all broken things do. She smiled faintly. We are broken, yes, she whispered. But broken things can rise. Broken things can heal. And broken things can become unbreakable. As months turned to years, humanity's strength only grew. Their fleets were not the largest in the galaxy, nor their weapons the most advanced, but they carried something greater. A spirit that refused to be crushed. For every city burned, they built 10 more. For every life lost, they carried the memory as fuel for their struggle. For every defeat, they found a way to turn the lesson into victory. The Council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity was not fading. Humanity was rising. From the ashes of every trial, from the ruins of every wound, from the very judgment that had once condemned them. The galaxy had seen many empires rise and fall, but none had seen a species like this before. And though the Council still hesitated to admit it, the truth was clear to all who watched. Humanity was no longer the broken species. They were the unyielding, the relentless, the ones who refused to stay down, and their story was only beginning. The galaxy had begun to whisper of humanity. What once was considered a broken people had now become a rising storm. Small victories had turned into steady triumphs, and their unity was no longer questioned by those who had seen it with their own eyes. But the raiders were not finished. They were proud, cruel, and furious at their repeated defeats. Their leaders believed that if they could strike at the very heart of humanity, at Earth itself, they could crush the spirit of this species once and for all, and so they gathered. From across dark corners of the galaxy, raider fleets came together. Ships stolen, ships built from scrap, ships painted in the black of fear, all assembled into the largest armada they had ever commanded. Tens of thousands of warriors sharpened their blades and charged their weapons. Their leaders gave one command: destroy Earth, leave nothing standing. Show the galaxy that humanity is no more than dust. The fleet moved silently, like a storm hidden behind night. On Earth, sensors caught the first shadows long before the ships arrived. The United Human Assembly was called into emergency session. The warning was clear. An armada larger than any humanity had ever faced was coming straight for their homeworld. For a moment, silence filled the great hall. The weight of fear pressed against every heart. But then Governor Elena Merrick stood once more. She had survived Haven Reach. She had seen colonies rebuilt, and she had watched humanity rise again and again from ruin. Her voice carried across the chamber, steady and fierce. They come to end us, she said, but they do not understand us. They think Earth is a world of weakness. They think our scars make us fragile. They are wrong. Our scars make us strong. If they want to see the heart of humanity, let them come. We will show them what it means to face us united. Her words spread across every channel, every station, every colony. From the icy mines of Europa to the farming domes on Mars, from the floating cities above Venus to the outposts beyond Neptune, the message was the same. Earth is calling. Stand together. When the raiders arrived, they expected to find a single planet surrounded by thin defenses. Instead, they faced something entirely different. Every human ship that could fly, from warships to cargo vessels armed with makeshift cannons, had gathered around Earth. Fleets that had once guarded only their own colonies now stood together as one great shield. Satellites had been turned into weapons. Civilian stations had been converted into fortresses. Even the orbital docks bristled with guns. It was not the strongest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, but it was the most determined. The first wave of raider ships came screaming forward, firing plasma blasts that lit the skies with fire. Human ships answered, unleashing every weapon they had. The battle began above Earth, a storm of light and thunder. From the ground, people looked up and saw streaks of fire crossing the heavens. Instead of fear, they felt pride. For every explosion above, they knew their defenders were standing strong. Inside the human fleets, captains shouted orders, pilots gritted their teeth, and engineers worked tirelessly to keep ships alive. Every crew member fought as if the future of their entire species depended on them, because it did. The raiders were many. They pressed forward with brutal strength, smashing through the first human lines. Several human ships were destroyed, their wreckage falling like burning stars. But humanity did not break. Each time a ship fell, the others closed ranks. Each time a defense line was breached, new traps awaited the raiders. At one point, the raiders broke through the outer ring and rushed toward Earth's atmosphere. But there they met a surprise. Human ground forces, prepared and waiting, unleashed a storm of fire from hidden launch sites. Civilian volunteers stood beside soldiers carrying supplies and passing weapons. No one was left idle. The battle raged for hours that felt like lifetimes. The skies above Earth glowed red with fire and white with explosions. Yet through it all the humans held. In the command center, Elena Marique watched the battle unfold. Her face was pale, but her eyes never wavered. "Push them back," she ordered. "Do not let them claim a single inch of our world." On the front lines, captains inspired their crews. "For Earth," they shouted. "For our families. For our future." And the humans, driven by fury and love for their home, fought harder than ever before. At last, the tide began to turn. The raiders had expected an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves caught in a storm they could not control. Their ships, once fierce, were surrounded and destroyed one by one. Their leaders, watching from the safety of their flagships, began to feel fear. A fear they had never known before. And then came the final blow. A fleet of human ships, led by veterans of Haven Reach, launched a daring counterattack. They pierced through the heart of the raider armada, striking directly at the command vessels. Explosions shook the void as one flagship after another went dark. The raider fleets, once united, began to scatter in chaos. When the last enemy ship fell, silence returned to the skies above Earth. Ships drifted, broken and burning, across the void. The stars shone once more, no longer hidden by the storm of war. Humanity had not only defended Earth, they had won. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like fire. Species who had long feared the raiders now spoke the name of humanity with awe. For the first time, they saw humans not as weak, not as broken, but as something else entirely, a force that refused to bow. In the council chambers, silence filled the air as the reports came in. "This cannot be," whispered one delegate. "They faced an armada larger than their own fleet," said another. "No species has ever survived such an assault." Ambassador Solari rose slowly. Her wings spread wide and her voice carried across the chamber. "They survived," she said, "because they are human. Because they rise where others fall. Because they turn fury into strength. You judge them broken. You were wrong." The elder speaker, for once, had no answer. On Earth, celebrations filled the streets. Families embraced. Children sang songs of victory. But the people also mourned those who had fallen, for humanity knew that victory always carried a cost. In the capital, Elena Merrick addressed her people once more. Her voice trembled with emotion, but her words were strong. "We have faced the fire and we did not fall. We have faced the storm and we did not break. We stood together and we endured. Let this be our promise to ourselves and to the galaxy. Humanity will never bow, humanity will never fade. We are the unbroken." Her speech was carried to every colony, every ship, every corner of human space. And those words became more than a speech. They became a vow. For the first time in history, the galaxy trembled not at the power of ancient empires, but at the rising strength of a people once thought broken. Humanity's fury had been unleashed, and the stars themselves seemed to echo with their cry, "We will endure. We will rise. We are human." The war was over. The silence after the storm was unlike any humanity had known. Above Earth, the stars glimmered like peaceful witnesses. The raider fleets were no more, scattered and broken across the edges of the galaxy. The armadas that had once threatened humanity were gone, replaced by an uneasy calm. But the galaxy had changed. No species could deny what had happened. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and broken, had fought not for power, not for conquest, but for survival. And in doing so, they had forged themselves into something new. In the great chamber of the Galactic Council, silence filled the air. Every delegate had received reports of Earth's victory. Every screen in the chamber displayed images of human fleets returning home, battered but proud. Survivors carried banners of peace alongside the scars of war. The elder speaker rose slowly, his silver voice trembling for the first time. "The humans have surprised us all. They have faced annihilation and stood unshaken. They have taken their defeat and turned it into triumph." A murmur ran through the chamber. Species that had once looked down upon humanity now exchanged uneasy glances. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and no one could deny it. Ambassador Solari stood again. "They are no longer the broken species we once judged them to be," she said clearly. "They are something stronger. They are proof that strength is not born of perfection, but of struggle. Let us welcome them, not as fragile allies, but as equals in the galaxy." The elder speaker said nothing. For the first time in centuries, the council had no answer. On Earth, celebrations filled every corner of the planet. Streets rang with laughter and song. Families gathered under the stars to share stories of bravery. Statues were built in honor of the fallen. But amidst the joy there was reflection. Humanity had survived not without loss, not without sacrifice. And they knew it. At the United Human Assembly, leaders gathered once more. Elena Merrick stood before them, her face steady and her voice strong. "We have survived the greatest storm," she said. "Not because of the strength of one army, but because of the unity of our people. We fought together across worlds, across oceans, across every divide that once kept us apart. This is the future we must build, not just for ourselves, but for every generation to come." Her words were not merely heard, they were felt. Across every colony and settlement, her message spread like wildfire. Humanity would stand united. Humanity would be the voice of hope. The council could no longer ignore humanity. Invitations were sent not out of pity but respect. Earth's ambassador walked into the council chambers not as a supplicant, but as an equal. Her steps were steady, her voice clear. When she spoke, silence followed. "We did not ask for your mercy. We did not beg for your trust. We fought, we endured, and we rose. Not to prove ourselves to you, but to prove ourselves to the galaxy and to ourselves. Let this be the beginning of a new chapter for all of us." And the galaxy listened. Across countless systems, humans began to speak not only of survival, but of their place among the stars. Colonies once isolated began to connect. Scientists shared knowledge freely. Engineers worked together on ships designed for peace and exploration as much as for defense. Humanity had learned that strength was not found only in victory, it was found in the promise of what comes after. The victories of war had forged a new identity. Humanity was no longer a people fighting to survive. They were a people choosing to thrive. Some species in the galaxy still feared humanity. They feared the fire that had been unleashed, the unity that could not be broken. But many more began to look to Earth as a beacon. Where humans had once been a quiet voice on the edge of the galaxy, they were now a chorus of hope, speaking louder than ever before. On the steps of Earth's great Capitol Hall, Elena Merrick addressed the people for the last time as governor. Her voice rang clear. "We have learned a great truth, that being broken is not the end of a story. It is the beginning. We have learned that unity is strength and that courage is born from struggle. Let us take this lesson into the stars. Humanity has risen and we will rise still higher." Her words were met with cheers that echoed into the night, and so humanity took its place among the stars. Not as a race to be pitied, nor feared, but as a force to be respected. They had been tested and they had endured. They had been underestimated and they had risen. The council now knew they could not judge humanity as they had before. No longer could they call them broken. Humanity had proven they could rise against any storm. Across the galaxy, new alliances were formed, new treaties were signed, and humanity became a new voice among the stars, one of resilience, unity, and hope. In quiet moments, far from the celebrations and speeches, people on Earth still looked to the night sky. Children pointed to the stars and asked what lay beyond them. Farmers paused in their fields to look upward. Sailors on distant oceans paused at midnight to watch the glow above. And in their hearts was a new truth. The galaxy was not theirs by conquest, but by promise. They promised to be better. They promised to stand together. They promised to rise again no matter what storms came. And so humanity's story continued, not as a broken species, but as a voice in the stars, one voice that would never be silenced.